This happened 4 years ago during a ski trip to Vermont, and it's the reason I always make sure someone knows exactly where I'm going now. I'm 31 and work as an accountant, but when this happened, I was 27 and had just finished a brutal tax season. My girlfriend at the time, who I'll call Jenna, suggested we take a long weekend at a ski resort to decompress. We booked a cabin through the resort about a mile from the main lodge. It was more secluded than the hotel rooms, but the privacy seemed perfect for a romantic getaway. The cabin sat at the edge of the tree line, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the slopes. Beautiful during the day, but at night, those windows just reflected darkness back at you. Our first 2 days were perfect. We skied, had dinner at the lodge, and spent our evenings by the fireplace. On the third night, things started to feel off. I woke up around 3 a.m. needing water. As I walked past the windows toward the kitchen, movement outside caught my eye. I stopped and pressed my face against the glass, cupping my hands around my eyes to see better. About 30 feet away, just inside the tree line, someone was standing there. I could make out the silhouette of a person, completely still, facing the cabin. My first thought was that it was a deer, but the shape was wrong. Too upright, too human. I watched for maybe 10 seconds, my breath fogging the glass. Then the figure took one step forward, into a patch of moonlight reflecting off the snow. It was definitely a person. They were wearing dark clothes and what looked like a ski mask. I backed away from the window slowly, my heart hammering. I woke Jenna and told her someone was outside. She thought I was being paranoid, maybe just saw a shadow from the trees. But when she looked, the figure was gone. We barely slept the rest of the night. I kept the lights on and checked the locks repeatedly. By morning, I had almost convinced myself Jenna was right. Maybe it was nothing. We decided to ski anyway, not wanting to ruin our last full day. The slopes were packed, the sun was out, and by lunchtime, I had mostly forgotten about the night before. That's when things got worse. We were on the chairlift, heading up for another run, when Jenna nudged me and pointed down. Below us, standing alone in the middle of a beginner slope, was someone in all black clothing. They weren't skiing. They weren't moving at all. They were just standing there, and their head was tilted up, looking directly at our chair. Even from that distance, I felt watched. Jenna squeezed my hand and whispered that it was probably just a ski patroller, but they weren't wearing the resort's red jackets. And something about the way they stood, perfectly still among all the moving skiers, made my stomach drop. When we got off the lift at the top, I immediately looked back down. They were gone. We decided to cut the day short and head back to the cabin early. I wanted to pack up and leave that night instead of the next morning. Jenna agreed. When we got to the cabin, the front door was open about 3 inches. I know I locked it. I remember specifically turning the deadbolt and checking the handle twice before we left. The door was open. I told Jenna to stay outside and call the resort security. I grabbed a ski pole from the car, which was stupid in hindsight, and pushed the door open wider. The cabin looked normal at first. Nothing overturned, nothing obviously missing. But then I noticed it. On the small table by the window, where we'd left a few magazines, there was a photograph. A Polaroid. It was a picture of Jenna and me, sleeping, taken from inside the cabin, standing over our bed. The timestamp printed on the bottom edge showed 2:17 a.m., the exact night I'd seen someone standing in the tree line. I ran outside, grabbed Jenna, and we drove straight to the resort's main building. Security searched the cabin and found a window in the back bedroom that had been jimmied open. The lock was damaged but still technically functional, which is why we hadn't noticed. Someone had been coming and going as they pleased. The police came and took the photograph as evidence. They said there had been reports of a similar incident at another cabin 2 months prior, but nothing was ever proven. They never caught anyone. We left that night, drove 4 hours back home without stopping. For months afterward, I would wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced someone was standing over the bed. I changed all the locks at my apartment, started sleeping with a baseball bat within reach. I've been back to ski resorts since then, but never to a cabin. And every time I check into a hotel, I check the window locks first, then the closets, then under the bed. Some people think I'm paranoid. I think I'm careful, because someone was in that cabin with us, watching us sleep. And I'll never know how many nights they stood there before I finally saw them in the trees. I still get a chill whenever I open any kind of tracking app on my phone. This happened last winter, and it's made me rethink everything about the technology I used to trust completely. I'm a 24-year-old software developer, so you'd think I'd be the last person to fall for something like this. My buddy Ethan and I had been planning a ski trip to Colorado for months. Neither of us were amazing skiers, but we wanted the experience. We booked 5 nights at a mid-sized resort that had decent reviews and wasn't too expensive. When we checked in, the front desk guy told us to download the resort's official app. It would track our skiing stats, show us real-time lift line wait times, and even let us see where we were on the mountain if we got separated. It sounded useful, so I downloaded it right there in the lobby. The first 2 days were great. The app worked exactly as advertised. I could see my speed on each run, my total vertical feet, everything. Ethan and I would joke about racing each other and then compare stats on the chairlift. Normal vacation stuff. On the 3rd day, the app started acting strange. I was on a chairlift alone. Ethan had stopped to take a bathroom break when I got a notification. It said, E_visitor is nearby. I assumed it was just Ethan, but when I tapped the notification, it opened the map feature. There was my blue dot on the chairlift, and there was another dot labeled E_visitor, positioned about 50 feet behind me, moving along the ground below the lift. I looked down, but the slope below was empty, just undisturbed snow and some tree coverage, no skiers. The dot was still there on my screen, keeping pace with the chairlift. I tried to close the app and reopen it, thinking it was a glitch. When the map loaded again, the dot was gone. I messaged Ethan asking if he was messing with me somehow, creating a fake profile or something. He had no idea what I was talking about. That night, I got another notification at around 2 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and when I checked it, the app was open. The map was showing my location inside the hotel room, and there was another dot, E_visitor. It was in the hallway, outside our door. I sat up and stared at the screen. The dot wasn't moving, just sitting there, right outside room 412, our room. I woke Ethan up and showed him. He thought I was messing with him at first, but when he saw my face, he got serious. He walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Nothing. Empty hallway. But on my screen, E_visitor was still there. Ethan opened the door quickly, like he was going to catch someone. The hallway was completely empty. Fluorescent lights, ugly carpet, no one in sight. I checked my phone again. The dot was gone. I deleted the app that night. We told the front desk the next morning, and the manager looked confused. She said the app didn't have a social feature that would let you see other users. There was no E_visitor profile in their system when she searched. We still had 2 more nights booked, but the notifications didn't stop. On the 4th night, I woke up to my phone's camera flash going off on its own. Just one flash, like someone had taken a picture. I grabbed the phone and checked the camera roll. The last photo was a picture of me sleeping, taken from above the bed, time-stamped 3:33 a.m. I hadn't taken any photos that night. I yelled for Ethan to wake up and showed him. Neither of us slept the rest of the night. We checked the whole room, the closet, the bathroom, under the beds. Nobody was there. All the doors and windows were locked from the inside. We left the next morning, a day early. I got a full phone reset done by a technician back home. He found a weird file buried in the system, something that had installed alongside the app but wasn't part of it. He said it looked like remote access software. Someone could have been watching through my camera, tracking my location, and sending those fake notifications. The police said without more evidence, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested I change all my passwords and monitor my credit reports. Practical advice that didn't make me feel any safer. I've tried to research other people having similar experiences with resort apps, but I haven't found anything conclusive. Maybe it was specifically targeted. Maybe I just got unlucky. But every time I download a new app now, I think about E_visitor. Whoever or whatever that was, they were watching me sleep. And I still don't know how close they actually got. I don't tell this story often, because people either don't believe me or they think I'm embellishing. But I know what I saw on that mountain 3 winters ago, and I've never been able to explain it. I'm 38 now, but I was 35 when this happened. I was an experienced backcountry skier, had been going off-trail for almost 10 years with no major incidents. A friend of mine, who I'll call Charlie, and I planned a 3-day backcountry trip in the Cascades. We had all the gear, avalanche transceivers, proper equipment, satellite phone for emergencies. We weren't amateurs. The first day was uneventful. We skinned up a ridge, made camp in a small flat area surrounded by old-growth trees, and settled in for the night. The weather was cold but clear. No wind. The kind of silence you only get in true wilderness, where you can hear your own heartbeat if you listen hard enough. Around midnight, I woke up to Charlie shaking my shoulder. He was sitting up in his sleeping bag, completely rigid, and he whispered that something was outside. I listened. At first, nothing. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the snow, crunching slowly around the perimeter of our camp. Not an animal gait, not the erratic movement of a deer or elk. These were deliberate, human-sounding footsteps. I grabbed my headlamp and started to unzip the tent, but Charlie grabbed my arm and told me not to. His face was pale in the ambient light, filtering through the tent fabric. He looked terrified, and Charlie was not a guy who scared easily. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence again. I counted maybe 30 seconds before we heard something else. A low vocalization that I can only describe as wrong. It wasn't quite a voice, but it wasn't an animal sound either. It was like someone trying to speak but not knowing how to form words. Just tones and clicks, rising and falling in a pattern that almost sounded like language. Then the tent shook. Something had grabbed the fabric from outside and shaken it. Hard. Not a wind gust. Something with hands. I shouted and scrambled backward, knocking into Charlie. The shaking stopped immediately. More silence. Then the footsteps again, moving away from the tent, getting fainter. We sat there, frozen, until the sounds disappeared completely. Neither of us slept. When dawn came, we unzipped the tent and looked around. The snow around our camp was disturbed in a circular pattern, like something had walked around us multiple times. The tracks were strange. They looked almost like human footprints, but too large and with an odd spacing between steps. Charlie wanted to leave immediately. I agreed, but I also wanted to know what we were dealing with. So before we packed up, I followed the tracks for about 50 feet into the trees. They ended at the base of a massive old fir tree. Just ended. No continuation, no climbing marks on the trunk, nothing. Like whatever made them had simply vanished. We packed up and started our descent. The whole way down, I kept looking over my shoulder. The forest felt different. Darker, somehow, even though it was full daylight. And twice, I could have sworn I saw movement in my peripheral vision, something pale shifting between the trees. But every time I turned to look, nothing was there. We made it back to the trailhead by afternoon. I've never told the Forest Service or anyone official because I don't know what I would even say. But I did some research afterward, and I found old accounts from indigenous communities in the area, describing something they called a mimic. A creature that lived in high mountain forests and imitated human sounds to lure people away from camp. Some accounts described it as tall, pale, and wrong-looking. Like something pretending to be human but not quite getting it right. I don't know what was outside our tent that night. I don't know what made those tracks or those sounds, but I know it wasn't a person. And it wasn't any animal I've ever encountered in my years of backcountry experience. I haven't done an overnight backcountry trip since. I still ski, but only at resorts now, surrounded by other people and with buildings and roads nearby. Because whatever is out there in those deep mountain forests, it's watching. And it knows how to make sounds that make you want to open the tent and look. Sometimes, when I'm falling asleep, I still hear that voice, those tones and clicks that almost sounded like language, and I wonder what it was trying to say.